Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long boys blues, 1975. Using girls on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends used to bug. Long boys blues, 1975.
Post 1975, and welcome to a nostalgic memories of video. Haven't done one of these videos in a while. In this one I want to do another one like I did my Batman video, where I talk about a specific movie and the effects it had on me as a child. And that movie would be A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, the one that was released by New Line Cinema in 1984, directed by Wes Craven and starring Robert Englund. I'm pretty sure you all know what this movie is. Now, why do I want to talk about this? Couple of reasons. One, I was talking to someone the other day who's considerably younger than me, right? You know, they're in their sort of mid-20s, and they said it was incredibly cheesy, and that all the sequels and follow-ups were just consistently more cheesy and lame. And while I kind of agree to the sort of later sequels, I was trying to explain the actual massiveness of this movie when it came out in 1984, more so when it was released on home video, which is where I got to see it, and a lot of people of my generation got to see it. And the fact that it had a massive cultural impact. It was filmed on literally just under $2 million and took 60 million worldwide, which adjusted for inflation, I don't even know what that is, but that's a pretty big deal. It forever changed horror movies. Everyone was trying to play catch up, you know, with a boogeyman of their own. Sure, there'd been slasher movies before this, and you had your well, Jason Voorhees, yeah, the original Friday the 13th is before this, and obviously you had Halloween, but this had a whole different element on the boogeyman, a very sort of, it was brilliant in the way it played on genuine fears that people had, a very visceral fear that humanity has always had of, you know, dying in your sleep, whether your dreams can actually kill you. Obviously there's a little bit more to it than that, because it had a protagonist within your dreams. Jumping ahead of myself. But the other reason I was trying to explain to this person that, yeah, you do not understand what a big deal this was. This was the stuff of legend in the playground, which led to quite a lot of people of a specific generation like me being, you know, where we first heard of it and why we wanted to see it, and how it completely scared the shit out of us, and our parents were fools for letting us watch it. And also, the other reason I want to talk about it is its 35th anniversary was actually last year. And I do remember at the time, it just seemed to come and go. No one seemed to make a big deal of it whatsoever. I mean, this year is 35th anniversary of Back to the Future, and obviously you could argue that was a bigger, more successful, you know, and, you know, impactful movie. Also, it was a kids' movie, so obviously more people saw it. But at the same time, you got to understand that A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one, was just, it was huge. It was a landmark moment in horror. It created a franchise that's, well, the last movie was 2010, and that was shite. But anyway, so the original movie was released in 1984, and then there was a sequel, Freddy's Revenge, then there was Dream Warrior, then there was Elm Street 4, I forget its subtitle, then there was 5, The Dream Child, and then there was A New Nightmare, where it kind of rebooted it and stuff like that, and he was in our world, and then there was the god-awful 2010 remake, but seriously, which took completely away of the character of Freddy Kruegar. Jumping ahead of myself a little bit again here, but I'm going to ignore all of those. They're kind of fun and they have their moments, and, you know, are worth watching to some degree, but I always watch, because of the impact it had upon me when I was a child, Elm Street, in the mindset that it was a standalone movie. Now obviously it's about a child killer, Freddy Kruegar, who haunts the dreams of children, and if he kills them in their dream, they die in real life, and he goes after the children of, sorry, spoilers, this is not a movie review or breakdown or anything like that. I just want to talk about how I saw it, when I saw it, some of the deaths, the effects it had on me, and the kind of big deal this movie was for kids, you know, sort of late primary school, early secondary school. And yes, once again, we probably shouldn't have watched it at this point, you know, and, you know, like, your parents let you watch A Nightmare on Elm Street when you were 10? Of course they didn't. Let me watch it when I was 11. Big difference. But yeah, I had to talk about it, because much like Batman, you know, much like Back to the Future, but I've made loads of videos on that, I want to talk about, you know, those, it's like driving by a train wreck or a car crash. You want to stop watching but you can't take your eyes off it. And that is the way I would describe watching A Nightmare on Elm Street as a child for the first time. But obviously, yeah, so Freddy Kruegar is this child killer. Now, initially, the reason he's stalking kids in dreams and how taking revenge upon the parents of Elm Street is he was a child killer when he was alive. And he was trapped by the parents of the children he had killed and burned to death. Hence the fact that he's horrifically scarred. He truly was a horrifically disturbing character at the time, and still is, you know. And but more so back then, just like fresh burns. It was horrible. And then when he killed them, he had a glove which had you know, knives on its fingers and stuff like that. Now, for whatever reason, and this is why I say watch it as a standalone movie, because if you watch Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, spoilers, it wasn't. They explain how he became like an immortal dream killer, and just don't. It's shit. Just live with the fact that you don't know. That's even more terrifying as a kid, which is, hang on, justice was performed on this individual for truly horrible crimes, and yet somehow he can come back. So he's got the same jumper he wore, again, visually stunning design of a character, glove, hat, horrific burns, and a red and green, like worn, dirty, grimy jumper. So he comes after, you know, these kids, and he starts killing them, bumping them off in their dreams. Now, I knew nothing of this. My first experience of A Nightmare on Elm Street, right, because you would occasionally get, you know, on VHS and stuff like that, or movies that were not necessarily that certification, but you would get a very watered down, proof-for-all sort of trailer, teaser trailer for stuff like that. That might be where you see, you know, your first glimpse of Freddy Kruegar or so, or things like that. Or possibly my parents were renting us 15 rated movies, so we would have seen that. Then obviously Elm Street was originally an 18 rated or certificated movie. But no, my first experience was, and it was just the intrigue. I was intrigued by the design of a character. We were on holiday in Westwood Ho. We were in the local town of Bideford, and even though we are, because you wouldn't have a VCR, you know, in 1985 or 86 in your chalet or anything like that, would you? Because that's, you know, you would now, but that's unheard of then. But we would still, my parents would still take us by the video store, and we would look at it, pop in and look outside, and it had a brilliant window, and it had all the posters in it, and I always remember that. And I just remember seeing this tiny little poster, almost A4 at the top left hand corner, for Nightmare on Elm Street. Title meant nothing to me, you know, I couldn't really understand, and it just had a picture of Freddy Kruegar. Again, could not process it other than he looked absolutely badass and terrifying, and I thought nothing more of it. And then we got to primary school, so I would have been pretty much in my last year, I think, of primary school, and a couple of kids had seen it, and they were talking about it. Have you seen A Nightmare on Elm Street? Have you seen A Nightmare on Elm Street? Oh my god, it's amazing. Freddy Kruegar is the most evil person in the world, and get this. And you got to remember, as a kid, he can kill you in your dreams, and if he kills you in your dreams, you die, and whatever he does to you in your dreams happens to you in real life. And again, I couldn't process it, but much like when kids bragged about seeing an American Werewolf, you know, in London, in the playground and stuff like that, I knew that we had to see it. Now, bear in mind, if I've mentioned many times, my parents wouldn't let us watch Rambo, which was a 15, but they let us watch Terminator, it was an 18. I think it was the mindless violence of Rambo that they didn't like for some reason, I don't know. I guess the title of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and if you didn't look at the back of the case, wasn't really an indication whatsoever for the movie. But I do remember, you know, like it's an 18 and my parents were kind of, you know, and obviously they would rent it for us. We'd be in the video stores, did this. We'd be in the video store. What's the rhyme say? 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you? Sorry, just seemed out. Yeah, we'd be in a video store. They know your parents were renting it for you, but they do it anyway because it was money. I mean, I'm pretty sure you get in a lot of trouble for that these days, but not then. It was the 80s. It was simpler times. No one gave a shit. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they were like, all right, you know, standard spiel like American Werewolf. Obviously, we watched that on TV eventually. If you get scared, that's on you, you know. Tough shit. I mean, American Werewolf scared me, but essentially if you stayed in your house, you were fine. The problem we know about Freddy Kruegar is he killed you in your dreams. So anyway, we watched it during the daytime. It was just me, my brothers in the room. It absolutely scared the piss out of us. This is like, I'm 85, 86, probably 86, may not necessarily seen it when it first came to video, but then things first came to video from the theatres back then, you know, a lot bigger gap. And also, did it get released in the theatres in this country? I honestly don't know. But then, you know, when I was 9, 10, 11, I didn't really pay attention to cinema other than what was shown in the theatre. It was going to be in the movies on kids shows and stuff like that. But yeah, we watched it, and like I said, car crash reference. Couldn't take our eyes off it, but fuck me, did it terrify us. It was just, you're watching it and you know, because your big fear when you were a kid was if you watched a horror movie you didn't want to have nightmares. Now here you are watching a horror movie about people who have nightmares and their nightmares kill you. I mean, it was genius. And you must have known when he came up with this idea, Wes Craven, obviously it was directed by Wes Craven, I think I forgot to mention that. Again, I'm not a film review channel. That this would have a trickle-down effect in all the people that will watch it. And maybe, I'm not saying he meant, you know, set it out to make kids, but obviously, what a market and what promotional tools scared to death kids would be, and parents pissed off about kids having to sleep in their beds and stuff like that. We didn't, because once again it was like, if this scares you, tough shit. But we were all terrified about going to bed. Fucking probably the best part of a couple of months. It truly scared the shit out of us. So it's a genius idea, but at the same time it's very, very well written. I mean, I've watched it loads of times since then. I have a dodgy, not remastered print of it on DVD, and I remember when it was shown on Sky, but we'll get to that later on. So we watched this movie, and obviously Freddy starts picking off the kids of Elm Street one by one, but it had that whole weird dream image thing nailed when people were in their dreams down perfectly. So that unnerved you as a kid, because it's like you remembered your dreams far more vividly than you do as an adult. I mean, you think you remember them pretty well now, but think back to dreams that you can remember from when you were a kid. You're going to remember dreams that you've had now to 20, 30 years from now? I sincerely doubt it, but I just remember, you know, the whole story when it's slowly trickling out, and being angry at the parents, which is like, look, you caused this. Why aren't you taking this seriously? Why aren't you listening to them? They're dying because of you. First death. What was first death? The girl, you know, who's shagging her boyfriend for the first time, or many times. I don't know. Again, that was probably a reason that our parents shouldn't have rented it for us. And then she's being, you know, she falls asleep and she's being attacked by Freddy, and she's flying around the room. I mean, that was just, oh God, and the scratches appearing across her and stuff like that. But, you know, again, we were just sat there like this, like, probably stop watching it. But you can. That fucking scared the piss out of me. That honestly scared the piss out of me. But again, the thing which is, no. How is this happening in the real world? I don't want this to be able to happen in the real world. If it can, like, hurt you in your dreams, but you just wake up, that's fine. I'll have that one, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a fucking nightmare about this tonight. That was when you also woke up and just went, this movie's unlike any other horror movie I'd ever seen, and I'd only seen a few at that point, to be fair. But now as an adult, thinking back about the other movies that were around at the time and the years before it, slightly before it, because not after, because as I said, everyone was trying to come up with their own boogeyman, or boogeyman, point to the quote. Yeah, you think that was tame. This was really a step in a brand new bold direction. A fucking killer, an immortal dreamstalker who kills his prey in their sleep, and it's translated into the real world. I mean, you see them running away from him, and again, it's a dream image you can relate to, more so as an adult, because you remember as an adult, you look at stuff in your dreams, you think, that's stupid, why does that look like that? Can't put my finger on it, but I know it shouldn't look like that. Like when you see him walking down the street and his long arms, a shadow, which is an image which has just become, you know, synonymous with Freddy lore. These long arms like that, the shadow of his arms, and then when they finally look at him, the camera goes on him, he's got big, weird, stretchy arms, which is not aged the greatest. But back then, again, that's when your brain just went, ooh, dream image. Just, oh, it was fantastic. You know, the Johnny Depp death, because this is his first movie, I believe that shat me up. Talking on the phone with the tongue coming out into her mouth, not knowing which was actually they were asleep. Played on that very cleverly. Were they asleep? Were they not asleep? You know, if he could do this to you while you're asleep, but it translates into the real world, like the guy who was hung in the prison. Like, again, why isn't anyone watching this? What exactly can you do to him? You can't do anything. He's all powerful. He's all, you know, unstoppable. And then the whole people trying to stay awake, you know, drinking nothing but coffee and things like that. And again, when you become an adult and you have to work massively long shifts like that, and you have to try and stay awake certain times, like waiting for the postman and things like that, you can feel that, you know what that's like, you know. But having that intensity, can't talk, just finished the night shift, got to sleep. You can feel for that, you know, but knowing that, again, as a kid, knowing that if you fall asleep, you are dead, because we're way few attacks in at this point, you know, he's not fucking around with you anymore. It's not just like a little wake-up call, a little boo, if you will. So this whole movie, we sat there and we shat our pants, we collectively shat our pants, and then the inevitable happened that night. Didn't want to sleep. Didn't say anything to our parents. I'm not saying we're massively traumatized or anything like that. Didn't say anything to our parents, but literally for half, you were fighting traffic, staying awake because you were terrified to fall asleep because of a movie. I know, like I said, people have always said movies, horror movies, like you're scared. As a kid, you're worried they're going to give you bad dreams, but you didn't want the bad dreams because of a movie you watched with bad dreams killed people. Realistically, at the back of your head, you knew it wasn't going to happen, but at the same time, it was still petrifying. It was still absolutely petrifying. I mean, little bits like when she's in the bath and the glove comes up between her legs, you know, Freddy stretching the wallpaper above her head and stuff like that. Knowing that he could affect you at any time in the real world. You know, you should have been, that alone should be a giveaway that you're fine. But yeah, but it all added up to the incredible power of this character and you being terrified to go to sleep. Obviously, once you fell asleep and you woke up, you realised it wasn't going to happen, you were fine. But you were still terrified, I guess, of dreaming about Freddy, and that happened honestly for, I wouldn't say a couple of months actually, for a few weeks. It left a true impact, but as that passed, you became more obsessed with this movie, absolutely obsessed with it, and more you would talk about it at school, and then obviously it would trickle down that, like, the sequels would come out, and you start to watch them and stuff like that, and they were just, the mysteriousness of it, you know, the freshness of it, the fact that nothing had been done like it before, that was being slowly watered down. It was never going to have the same impact it had in the first movie, which is why I want to do this movie, nostalgic memories of, because honestly, movies have touched me and stuff like that, but no movie has done that in such a way that it was true, genuine fear, petrifying fear of having nightmares about this monster who could kill me. And like I said, no, he wasn't going to kill you, but I sure as fuck didn't want him in my dreams. Terrified me. Obviously, shouldn't have watched the movie when I was that young. Obviously, parents shouldn't have. But you know what kids were like then, now. Nag, 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 nag. Us getting movies like this, you know, that we weren't supposed to watch, was the equivalent of kids these days getting their phones and stuff. This is what we nagged for. This is what we wanted. And this is how they shut us up. But my next, like, big event I remember about it was, you would see T-shirts start to trickle into like specific stores and stuff like that. And these are ones again where we went on holiday in Biddyford. There was like a memorabilia movie store, and you would see Freddy Kruegar T-shirts in the window. And we got past being utterly terrified at this point, or affected by the movie, but wanted these T-shirts. You would see the stuff imported from America. You would see the glove. It was like a plastic glove, but it was amazing. They had that talking Freddy Kruegar doll you see in toy review videos on YouTube now, which was the one I saw on this shop window. And it was amazing, and the cardboard cutouts, you know, of Freddy standing there like that, you know. And I always wanted to get one of those and stick it in my brother's room and then wake him up with, like, at the end of the bed. But he was everywhere. He became so big, so huge that it was something else, you know. Eventually got his own TV series, didn't he? It was his was it Freddy's Nightmares, which was like an anthology-based horror show. The first one was the story of his being killed. Sorry, spoilers, but you don't need to watch it. It's fucking awful. And him going to trial. And then the rest were like horror anthology stories. It was shown on Sky. But yeah, he got products. He was put on everything. More so in North America than here. But you could go to import shops and stuff like that. And I always remember that there were ones around and stuff like For Other People, like Park Street, things like that. Was absolutely everywhere. This is what I mean about when people say, "Oh my God, it's hazy, it's cheesy," and stuff like that. Freddy Kruegar was huge. No other horror movie character, bad guy, could touch him at this point. Absolutely huge. And this is what I remember about it. Going from being utterly scared of it to being utterly fascinated with it. And I'd say watch it as a standalone movie. But obviously the more the movies went on, the more it became a pop culture icon. Which is terrible if you think what he is. And obviously I forgot to mention this when I was talking about his filmography. Freddy's. There was that, you know... Freddy versus Jason spin-off movie, which is fantastic. I love. I always root for Jason, not Freddy. Which is weird if you stop to think about it, because you're rooting for one or another child killer. But yeah, I have such nostalgic memories for this because of the begging to watch it, from knowing very little about it, to playground, you know, whispers to it, to watching it, being generally fucking terrified to sleep for weeks to then just Freddy being absolutely everywhere. And then obviously we had Sky Movies, and he kicked in on Sky Movies, and you could see that movie, and then you went on to see the rest of them because they'd all end up there eventually. I don't like them because he becomes more and more watered down. While he made jokes as such in the first movie, it was very, dark and all about killing people. And eventually it just became it watered down so much that it was all about, I don't know, coming up with a more interesting and comical way to kill someone than you've done before. At which point, when you're 6 movies in or 5 movies in, it's probably going to get a little bit difficult. But it was fun to watch them on Sky. But yeah, the first movie just was a mind exploding experience when I was a kid, and then suddenly the fact that the public was, I mean, I know Jason Voorhees and Mike Myers were kind of big icons, but Freddy Krueger just went into merchandise mode and just exploded and was everywhere. And I went, like I said, I went from being scared to being utterly fascinated and intrigued by the character. And yeah, I mean, you watch a lot of horror movies. I love zombie movies and stuff like that, but you know what a zombie is, and you take it and you leave it at the end of the movie. I mean, how many horror movies, probably because I watched the first one as a kid, do you become invested that much? And they knew it. The people who made it, New Line Cinema, knew it, and they rinsed it for everything they could, which is probably why towards the end it got a bit pants and weak, and kind of watered it down with the merchandising. But where you don't get that. You certainly don't get that now. Maybe the Aliens franchise, but that certainly isn't a Freddy Krueger slasher movie, is it? But yeah, I had to talk about this because no one talked about it on its anniversary, and also I want it on 4K. Anyway, specifically if you are my age, which is you were 9, 10 when the movie came out, and if you saw it at a very young age, I'd love to know what you think, because like I said, anyone I talk to is of my age, and you bring up A Nightmare on Elm Street, oh, you'll get a story from everyone, and you can just chat forever about it, because it really did impact an entire generation. And yeah, I'd love to know what you think. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later.